The Spanish dreamer Estibaliz Carranza was born into a life of scarcity in Spain. Gifted with striking red hair and a sharp intellect, she grew up feeling the weight of her family's poverty. Driven by a desperate need for independence, she left home after high school, embarking on a journey across borders. After a disappointing stint in Mexico, she landed in Germany, taking a job at a local ice cream parlor. She wasn't just a worker, she was a visionary. She treated ice cream as an art form, introducing complex flavors and American-style service that turned the small shop into a local sensation. When the elderly owner decided to retire, she saw Estibaliz as the perfect successor. Estibaliz took over the lease, hired a crew, and transformed the business into a gold mine. She was a success, but she was lonely. The manipulator Holger Cohen into this success walked Holger, a man who looked like he belonged on a movie screen. He was tall, blonde, and possessed a charm that Estibaliz found irresistible. They began a whirlwind romance, but it was built on a foundation of lies. Holger was a drifter with mounting debts, and he saw Estibaliz not as a partner but as a bank account. Persuaded by Holger, Estibaliz sold her German business and moved to Vienna, Austria, to open a massive state-of-the-art parlor called Schleckeria. They married, but the domestic bliss was a facade. Estibaliz was consumed by a biological clock. She wanted a child more than anything in the world. Holger, however, was cold and dismissive. Eventually, he admitted the truth. He never wanted a family and had only used her for financial stability. They divorced, but the legal battle was a stalemate. Holger refused to leave the apartment, claiming half ownership. They lived as enemies under one roof. He took pleasure in breaking her spirit, telling her she was disgusting and unlovable, and that her dreams of motherhood were a joke because no man would ever want to stay with her. The first descent into darkness on a quiet afternoon in 2008, the verbal abuse reached a breaking point. As Holger sat at his computer, he turned to Estibaliz and unleashed a final, cutting insult about her worth as a woman. Something in her snapped. She remembered the caliber Beretta Holger kept in a cupboard. She grabbed it and shot him twice in the back of the head. The silence that followed was deafening. To hide the body, she dragged him to the basement. She attempted to put the body in a freezer, but it wouldn't fit. She then did the unthinkable. Using her professional kitchen tools and a saw, she dismembered her husband. When the smell of decomposition began to seep through the floorboards, she had a brilliant idea. She bought bags of gypsum and cement, mixing them to encase each body part in a solid, airtight block. She placed these blocks in the deep freezers, hidden behind tubs of ice cream. The second betrayal, the calculated revenge, Estibaliz eventually moved on to a new lover, an Austrian man she hoped would finally give her the child she craved. However, history repeated itself. She discovered he was a pathological liar and a serial cheater. But Estibaliz was no longer a victim, she was a predator. She didn't kill him in a fit of rage like she did with Holger. This time she planned. She enrolled in a construction course under the guise of wanting to renovate her shop, specifically learning how to mix concrete and handle building materials. She also went to a shooting range to ensure her aim was lethal. In 2010, she invited her lover over. While he was distracted, she shot him 4 times in the head at point-blank range. Using an electric saw, she methodically dismembered him. Remembering her construction lessons, she turned his remains into perfect concrete cubes. She bought a second large freezer, placed the cubes inside, and stacked them alongside the remains of her first husband. The hand of fate, Ronald, and the maintenance call by 2011, Estibaliz had married a man named Ronald. She was finally pregnant, carrying the child she had wanted for a decade. She felt she had gotten away with it. Her dark past was literally buried in the basement. The undoing of the ice cream killer was remarkably ordinary. While Estibaliz was away, Ronald noticed a strange smell coming from a storage area and thought a freezer might be leaking. He called a plumbing and maintenance crew. When the workers entered the basement, they found a strange wall of concrete blocks. As they began to move them to reach the pipes, a block fell and shattered. Inside the concrete was a plastic bag. When it tore open, a human head and a hand fell out. The workers fled and the police descended on the property. They found both men meticulously preserved in concrete. The capture and the legacy Estibaliz fled to Italy but was captured shortly after. The trial was a media circus. Psychiatrists described her as a grave mental abnormality, a woman who could be charming and polite one moment and a cold-blooded killer the next. In 2012, she was sentenced to life in a secure psychiatric unit. She gave birth to her son in prison, but he was taken from her arms almost immediately and sent to live with her parents in Spain. She eventually wrote a memoir titled The Two Faces of Estibaliz, detailing how her desperate search for love turned her into a monster. She remains incarcerated to this day, known forever as the woman who hid her victims in the very place she served sweetness to the world. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!